Ravi sat at the large family dinner table, quietly picking at his food. Laughter echoed all around, but none of it was because of him. His clothes were plain, his hands rough from work, and he said little. He was used to silence. But tonight felt different. Heavy. It was his wife Mina's family gathering. Everyone had come, her parents, her uncles and aunts, her cousins, and even her younger brother who just got promoted in a big company. Mina sat beside him, dressed in a shining silk dress, her hair neatly tied, her jewelry bright. She smiled often, but not at Ravi. She laughed loudly, but never with him. "Ravi," her uncle said suddenly, turning to him with a curious smile, "still working on that Mars colony thing?" Ravi nodded politely. "Yes, I work in the Mars maintenance wing. I take care of the machines there." "Machines?" Someone chuckled from the other side. "Still fixing wires and pipes?" After all these years, the table laughed. Ravi gave a small smile, but he said nothing. Mina raised her glass and smiled sharply. "He's a technician, uncle, not an engineer. That's why we don't have our own house yet, or even a proper car." The laughter grew louder. Her words were sharp like a blade dressed in sugar. Ravi's heart sank, but he stayed quiet. He didn't want to argue in front of the whole family. One cousin leaned forward. "Why don't you do something different, Ravi? Get a better job? Or ask Mina's dad for help?" "Because he has pride," Mina said, with a fake smile. "He thinks hard work will magically bring success, even if it takes forever." Ravi looked at his plate. His food had gone cold. He no longer felt hungry. Her father, sitting at the head of the table, cleared his throat. "Ravi is honest. That is good. But in today's world, being poor and proud is not useful." The words hit Ravi hard. But he still didn't speak. He had faced hardship before: machines breaking, tools failing, systems collapsing in the colony. But this was different. This was a storm of words from people who once smiled at his wedding, who once called him family. As the laughter moved on to other topics, vacations, shopping, new homes, Ravi quietly stood up. He told Mina he needed some air. She didn't even look at him. Outside, the night was cool. The stars above were soft and silent, just like him. He walked slowly past the trees near the house, hands in his coat pockets. He thought of the past. When they were younger, Mina used to say she loved his dreams. She would sit beside him and listen for hours as he spoke about Mars, machines, and how one day he would build something great. But dreams didn't pay bills. And over time, love faded under pressure. He looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there was Mars, red and rough, just like his life. Back there, in the dust and silence, he felt more alive. Earth was crowded, full of noise and fake smiles. Mars was honest, harsh but honest. His phone buzzed. A message from Mina. "Where are you? Don't act strange. Come inside. People will talk." He stared at the screen, then switched the phone off. For the first time that night, he took a deep breath. Cold air filled his lungs. Slowly, something inside him began to raise, not anger, not sadness. A spark, a voice inside whispered, "You are more than this." The next morning, before anyone woke up, Ravi packed his bag. He left a note on the kitchen table. "Thank you for the meal. I'm returning to Mars. I have work to do." Mina read the note when she came down for breakfast. She rolled her eyes. "So dramatic," she said to her mother. "He always runs when he can't handle things." But she didn't know this time. Ravi wasn't running away. He was running toward something. Back on Mars, the dust storms blew across the metal buildings of the colony. Ravi stepped off the shuttle, his eyes sharp, his face calm. His co-workers greeted him with surprise. "You came back early?" "Yes," he said simply. "I've decided to take the open project in the fringe tech zone." They stared at him. "That's dangerous." "No one wants that assignment." "I want it," Ravi replied. "Give me the blueprints. I'm ready to build something new. Ravi walked through the metal halls of Mars Colony 4, his steps quiet but steady. Red dust still clung to his boots. The air inside was dry, the lights cold and white. He carried a small bag over his shoulder, no gifts, no pictures, just tools. And notebooks. His return had surprised many. Most people came back from Earth feeling happy, full of stories and joy. Ravi came back alone, early, with fire in his heart and silence on his lips. He didn't speak about what happened at the family dinner. He didn't mention Mina's words, the laughter, or the cold looks. He buried all that deep inside and focused. On one thing, his work. At the main control hub, Ravi met Arjun, his team supervisor. "You're back already?" Arjun asked. "Yes," Ravi said. "I want to take the project in the fringe tech zone." Arjun raised his eyebrows. "That's not a small job. You'll be alone most of the time. And the project is dangerous. Many engineers gave up on it." "I won't," Ravi replied. "Give me the blueprints. I'll handle it." Arjun stared at him for a moment, then slowly nodded. "All right. But be careful. This project has broken smarter men than you." Ravi gave a slight smile. "Then I'll just have to be stronger." The fringe tech zone was a place where few dared to work. It was on the far edge of the colony, surrounded by red rocks and endless silence. The sky above was always orange, and the wind carried dust like smoke. Most people avoided it. Too quiet. Too risky. The project there was called the Phantom Driver. New kind of engine. It could bend space and allow faster-than-light travel. But every test so far had failed. The machines overheated, circuits exploded, and one engineer even got hurt. After that, the lab was locked. Left to rust. But Ravi was not afraid. He moved into the small lab near the test site. It was old and full of broken parts. Dust-covered. The control panels. Tools were scattered across the floor. Screens flickered weakly. It smelled like burnt metal. Ravi cleaned everything with care. He set up his table, arranged his tools, and placed a photo of his old mentor, Professor Dev, in the corner. Professor Dev once told him, "When the world turns its back, turn toward the stars." Ravi took a deep breath and opened the main file on the Phantom Drive. Days turned into weeks. Ravi worked alone. Morning to night, sometimes through the night. He studied every part of the engine design, finding flaws others had missed. He rewired systems, changed fuel settings, and tested new cooling methods. His hands became rougher, his beard longer. He forgot what day it was. He didn't check messages from Earth, not even from Mina. The colony workers whispered about him. "He's crazy. No one can fix that thing. Why is he wasting his time?" But Ravi didn't care. In his mind, every failure at that dinner table played like a memory. Every laugh, every insult became fuel. He remembered Mina's words. "He thinks hard. Work will magically bring success." And so, he worked harder than ever before. One night, while testing a small version of the engine, a soft hum filled the lab. The lights flickered, but the engine stayed stable. Ravi stared in silence. For the first time, the Phantom Drive didn't explode. It didn't shut down. It worked, even if only for 10 seconds. It was progress. He quickly recorded the data, made notes, and started working again. He didn't sleep that night. Or the next. The engineers from the main lab began to notice. "Did you hear?" someone said. "He got the core running. No way. That thing is cursed." But he did it, alone. Even Arjun came to visit one day. Ravi didn't look up. His eyes were fixed on a glowing screen. "You don't stop, do you?" Arjun asked. Ravi finally looked up. "No, I'm close, very close." Arjun gave a short nod. "Good, just don't burn yourself out." Ravi smiled faintly. Fire doesn't burn someone already made of it. 2 months later, Ravi sent a report to the Mars Council, Phantom Drive, version 7 now stable, ready for full test. They didn't believe it at first. But when the test was done, they couldn't deny it. The engine worked. It bent space. Slightly, just enough to move an object 10 meters without it traveling through the space between. It was small, but it changed everything. The news reached Earth. Suddenly. Calls came from space agencies, news networks, and private companies. They all wanted to know who was Ravi. How did he do it? What was next? But Ravi didn't answer any calls. He stayed in his lab, working quietly. He didn't do it for fame. He didn't do it for money. He did it for himself. To prove he was not small. To show the world, and one person in particular, that even a quiet man could shake the stars. Ravi stood alone in the testing chamber, watching the phantom drive glow with soft blue light. It had taken months of pain, failure, and silence to reach this point. Now the engine worked not perfectly, but enough to open a door for humanity. Test object, a small steel cube, disappeared from one side of the chamber and reappeared on the other, without moving through the space between. It was not teleportation. It was space bending, a ripple, a fold, and only one man had made it possible. Ravi looked down at his hands, blackened from engine grease and burns. These were not the hands of a hero. They were the hands of someone who refused to give up. That night, he sat under the glass roof of the colony observatory. The red Martian sky stretched above him, and the stars blinked like quiet messengers. He remembered Mina's voice, her laughter, the way she pointed at him in front of everyone. He remembered how small he felt. Now, the universe didn't feel so far anymore. The next morning, Ravi gave the engine a new name. He called it the Surya engine. Surya meaning the sun, bright, burning, and silent. Like him. It was also his father's name. A man who once worked as a school teacher in a dusty village, who raised Ravi with hope and discipline. When Ravi told him about his dreams of space travel, his father had smiled and said, "A quiet sun still burns the brightest." Ravi smiled at the memory. Now, his sun had started to rise. The Mars Council held a special meeting. Important people from Earth joined by video. Scientists, directors, and government leaders watched the test recordings in silence. They saw the object move without travel. They saw the system remain stable. They saw the future. "This is real," one scientist whispered. "Impossible," said another. "But it happened. Who built this?" Someone asked. A voice answered, "Ravi Sharma, technician, Mars Colony 4. For a moment, there was silence. Then a voice from Earth said, "Get him on a call, immediately." Ravi sat in the small communication room of the colony, wearing his old brown sweater and holding a simple notebook. The screen in front of him showed 10 faces, men and women from the top science agencies of Earth. "Mr. Ravi," one of them began, "we have reviewed your work. We are impressed beyond words." "Thank you," Ravi said calmly. "We want to offer full funding for your research. We want to bring you back to Earth, build a lab, give you a team." Ravi looked at the faces for a moment. "I appreciate the offer," he said. "But I don't want to return to Earth. My work began here. It will stay here." There was surprise on their faces. "You don't want awards? Fame? Recognition?" one woman asked. "No," Ravi replied. "I want freedom. No interruptions. Just the work." A silence followed. Then, the main speaker said, "Very well. You'll have full independence. Name your budget." Ravi smiled faintly. "I don't need much. Just let me build." The news of the Surya engine spread like fire. Headlines across Earth called it the greatest leap since electricity. Video showed the cube jumping across space in a flash. Schools thought about Ravi Sharma. Children drew pictures of the Surya engine. But Ravi stayed out of the light. He continued his tests. Improved the design. Made it smaller, stronger, safer. He also started writing notes for young engineers, sharing what he had learned, step by step with no secrets. Many people respected him. Some called him strange, but everyone listened. One day, a ship arrived from Earth. A team of engineers came out, along with Ravi's old classmate, Tanu, who now worked for the Global Space Agency. Tanuj greeted him warmly. "You haven't changed at all." "You have," Ravi said with a smile. "You look like a government man now." Tanu laughed. "Maybe, but I'm here to help. They want us to start working on something bigger, a ship that can carry people using the Surya engine." Ravi nodded. "Then let's begin." Together, they started building the first prototype ship, Ugni 1. It was small, meant for 2 people, but it could travel faster than any ship before. Instead of burning fuel for weeks, it could bend space and reach the moon in minutes. Later, it could go further. Ravi worked on the heart of the ship. Tanuj handled the structure. Other engineers followed their lead, asking questions, learning. For the first time in his life, Ravi was surrounded by people who respected his mind, not just his hands. Meanwhile, on Earth, Meena sat in a coffee shop with her friends. She scrolled through her phone and paused. There he was, Ravi Sharma, in an article titled, "The Man Who Bent Space." Her friends leaned in. "Isn't that your husband?" Meena smiled quickly. "Yes, he's doing something in space. I always knew he had potential." But deep inside, something twisted. She remembered that dinner. She remembered laughing at him. She remembered walking away when he needed her. Now, the world looked at him with awe, and he hadn't even told her. Back on Mars, Ravi stood beside Ugni 1, his hand resting on the cool metal. The stars above seemed a little closer now. He was not trying to prove anything anymore. He was building a new path for humanity, for dreamers, for quiet men like him. 5 years had passed since Ravi had walked out of that family dinner, silent and humiliated. A lot had changed in those years, but not for everyone. On Earth, Meena still lived in the same city. She had grown more successful in her career, bought a new car, and moved into a better apartment. People around her still praised her beauty and style. But deep inside, something was missing. She often heard the name Ravi Sharma in the news. He was now a global figure. He had built the Surya engine, the Ugni 1, and changed space travel forever. But he never called her, never replied to her messages. At first, she felt annoyed, then confused, and slowly ashamed. She sat quietly one evening, watching a news report on her tablet. The International Tech Summit will be held next week in Mumbai. Leading minds from around the solar system will attend. But all eyes are on one man, Ravi Sharma, the humble genius from Mars who built the future. Her hand froze. Mumbai? She whispered. That was her city. The day of the Tech Summit arrived. The event was grand. Lights, cameras, banners, and people from all over the world. Flags from Earth colonies waved proudly, and giant posters of the Surya engine covered the walls. Meena stood in the crowd with her family. She had insisted they come. "This will be historic," she told them. "And someone I know will be there." Her father looked confused. "Who?" She didn't answer. Inside the hall, the crowd grew silent as the announcer stepped up. "Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome the man who gave us stars. Please rise for Mr. Ravi Sharma." There was thunderous applause. Then he walked in. Ravi entered the hall, calm and quiet. He wore a simple black coat and dark gray pants. No designer suit, no golden badge. Just a name tag that said, Ravi Sharma, founder Surya Project. He walked with purpose, nodding politely to the crowd, but not stopping for cameras. Everyone stood, even Meena. Her heart pounded. He looked different, more confident, more focused. His face was the same, but his eyes had changed. They looked like someone who had seen space and returned stronger. He stepped onto the stage and stood before the microphone. "Thank you for this honor," he said softly. But I'm not here to take credit. I'm here to remind you that small hands can build great things, that silence is not weakness, and that even those laughed at once can change the world. The crowd went silent. Then came the loudest applause of the day. After the speech, guests gathered in private rooms to meet Ravi. Scientists, leaders, and engineers lined up to shake his hand. Meena stood at a distance, unsure. Her feet wanted to walk toward him. Her pride held her back, but finally, she stepped forward. She saw him alone in a hallway, checking something on a tablet. "Ravi," she said softly. He looked up. His eyes didn't show surprise. "Only peace." "Meena," he said with a nod. There was silence. You've changed," she whispered. "I had to," he replied. She looked down. "I saw your speech. It was beautiful. Thank you." "I was wrong, Ravi," she said, her voice shaking. "That night at dinner, I hurt you." He didn't. "Speak." "I was foolish," she continued. "I thought money meant success. I didn't see your value." He looked at her kindly. "You saw what many people saw. It's not your fault. We grow by learning." She wiped her eyes. "I always told people I believed in you, even when I didn't." Ravi gave a small smile. "Belief is not in words. It's in patience." She nodded slowly. "Do you hate me?" "No," he said gently. "I don't hate anyone, but I've changed. I've moved forward." Her voice dropped. "Is there still a place for me?" Ravi paused. "I don't live in the past anymore." He said quietly, "I don't wait for apologies. And I don't carry anger." He placed his tablet in his coat. "But Meena, I am not the same man you laughed at. And you are not the person I loved." Her eyes filled with tears. "I understand," he gave a soft smile. "I wish you peace." And with that, he turned and walked down the hallway, leaving Meena behind alone, but wiser. Later that night, Ravi sat on the roof of the summit building, away from the noise. The stars above were clear. He could see Mars from here, glowing faintly in the sky. Tanya joined him with 2 cups of tea. "She came, didn't she?" he asked. Ravi nodded. "What did you say?" "Nothing cruel, just the truth." Tanya smiled. "You're still the same, kind even when you don't have to be." Ravi looked at the stars. Kindness is not weakness. They sat in silence for a while. Then Tanya asked, "What now?" Ravi stood up slowly. "Now we build Ugni 2, a ship that can reach Jupiter's moon in one jump." "Still chasing the stars?" Tanya asked. Ravi smiled. "No, now I'm bringing them closer." The summit ended with cheers, awards, and fireworks. But for Ravi, the real success was not on stage, it was in the journey. From being humiliated to being honored, from being ignored to being remembered. From being laughed at to being followed, not because he shouted, but because he kept going. After the summit ended, the large hall slowly emptied. The guests returned to their hotels, the media packed up their cameras, and the bright lights were turned off one by one. But one room on the top floor stayed lit a longer. It was a quiet conference room, away from the main stage. Inside, Ravi sat by the window, staring at the night sky. His bag rested beside him, filled with notes, diagrams, and memories. He had given his speech, met world leaders, and shared his dream. But there was one person still waiting to speak with him. Meena. She stood outside the door, nervous and unsure. Her hands were cold, and her heart beat faster than it had in years. She had rehearsed her words many times in her head. Now as she slowly stepped inside, all those words vanished. Ravi looked up, their eyes met. The silence was long, but not angry. Just heavy. "I wasn't sure you'd still be here," Meena said softly. "I had some time before my flight," Ravi replied. She pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. "Can we talk?" Ravi nodded. "Of course." For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of a distant clock ticking filled the space. "I've been watching your journey," Mina began. "From the Surya engine to Ugni 1, you've done something amazing." "Thank you," Ravi said, calm and respectful. Mina looked down at her hands. "When you left after that dinner, I didn't expect you to disappear completely. I thought you'd come back, or at least call." "I needed to disappear," Ravi said. "Not to run, but to grow." She nodded slowly. "And you did, more than anyone expected. I told myself I was proud of you. But inside, I knew I had failed." "You," Ravi leaned back in his chair, his eyes gentle. "We both changed. Time does that." Mina's voice trembled. "Ravi, I was wrong. That night, I was cruel. I wanted to impress others. I didn't respect your struggle. I forgot the man I married." He didn't interrupt her. He listened. "I judged you because you didn't have money," she continued. "But now I see, you had something greater. You had strength, patience, vision, and I didn't see it then." Ravi gave a small, thoughtful smile. "Sometimes people don't see the value of a seed. They only understand its worth when it becomes a tree." Tears formed in her eyes. "I didn't deserve your kindness, and I don't expect forgiveness." "You don't need to ask," he said. "I forgave you a long time ago. Not for you, but for me. Forgiveness gave me peace." She wiped her eyes with a tissue. "You're still kind, still gentle." Ravi's face stayed calm. "I'm not the same man, Mina. I've walked through fire. I've rebuilt myself. I've seen stars close up. The man who once sat silently at your family table is gone. What you see now is someone new." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Do you still love me?" He didn't answer right away. "I loved you once," he said slowly. "With all my heart. But love needs respect. It needs support. And it dies when it is laughed at." She nodded sadly. "I understand," Ravi continued. "We both took different paths. I don't regret mine, and I don't blame you for yours." Mina looked at him, broken but honest. "Can we start again? Maybe as friends, as strangers who know each other's story." Ravi paused. "You're free to live your life, Mina," he said kindly. "You don't need my permission or friendship to heal. And I don't need to go back to move forward." She gave a small smile. "You've become a different person." "No," Ravi said. "I've become the person I always was, the one no one noticed." The clock on the wall showed it was nearly midnight. Ravi picked up his bag and stood. "My shuttle leaves in an hour," he said. Mina stood too. "Thank you for speaking with me." He nodded. "Thank you for finding the courage to come." As he reached the door, she said one last thing. "Ravi, I hope you find someone who sees your light before it becomes too bright to look at." He looked back and smiled gently. "Maybe I already have, or maybe I don't need to be seen anymore. Just useful." Then he walked out. Outside, the night was cool. Ravi walked down the quiet streets toward the launch center. His mind wasn't filled with sadness or anger, only clarity. Some people stay in our lives to build with us. Some leave so we can build alone. And sometimes silence isn't the end, it's the beginning. He reached the launch zone where Ugni 2 was waiting. A ship built not from metal alone, but from pain, growth, and unshakable will. Tanyu greeted him at the gate. "Everything okay?" he asked. Ravi gave a quiet nod. "Yes, I'm ready." The ship Ugni 2 flew through the black silence of space, powered by the Surya engine. It left Earth behind like a memory and pushed forward toward the moons of Jupiter. On board, Ravi sat by the observation window, looking at the stars. He was not thinking about the past anymore. Not about shame, not about Mina, not about those who laughed at him. His mind was clear, focused. He was thinking about what was next for humanity. The ship arrived at Europa, one of Jupiter's icy moons, where a small colony had just begun. Ravi had come to test a new base drive for deeper space missions. The colony welcomed him with respect. "Sir Ravi," a young officer said, offering a handshake. "We've read your work in our training. It's an honor." "I'm not a hero," Ravi replied calmly. "Just a man who didn't stop walking." They showed him the lab, the ice shield domes, the deep drilling machines, all part of Earth's first effort to find water and life far beyond the Moon and Mars. But Ravi wasn't only here for science. He had something greater on his mind. He wanted to teach others how to think freely, build boldly, and believe in themselves. Far away, across the galaxy, a quiet alien race called the Valari watched Earth's activity with great concern. Their ships were hidden beyond Saturn's rings, observing without making contact. The Valari had been watching humans for decades. At first, they believed humans would destroy themselves. They saw greed, war, and pride. But now they saw something. Different progress, speed, innovation, unity. Their leader, a tall being named Siren, stood before a glowing star map. "How did they build it?" he asked his advisor. "How did they break the fold of space?" "They call it the Surya engine." The advisor replied, "It was built by one man, a human named Ravi Sharma." "One man?" Siren said, surprised. "Not a government, not an army?" "No," the advisor said. "Just one man, humiliated and forgotten, who kept building." Siren was silent for a moment. He had seen many species rise and fall. But this was something new. A single human, born with no power or position, had opened the door to deep space. "They are more dangerous than we believed," Siren whispered. "Shall we intervene?" The advisor asked. Siren looked at the stars. "Not yet. But watch them closely. If more like him rise, we may be forced to reveal ourselves." Back on Europa, Ravi stood inside the ice lab with his new team. He had been teaching them how to improve the Surya core for longer trips, possibly to Saturn, or even to distant stars. One engineer, Rena, looked up from her terminal. "Sir, why don't you take a break?" she asked kindly. "You've been working for 16 hours. "I don't need rest," Ravi said with a smile. "I rested for too many years," she smiled back. "Still, the team worries. You give too much of yourself." Ravi paused. "That's the only way to build something that lasts. You don't give what's easy, you give what costs you." He stood up and walked to the viewing glass. Below them, the icy land of Europa stretched in all directions, untouched. "Waiting. We are not just building engines here," he said. "We are building hope. A future where no one is left behind. Where even the quiet ones get a chance." Back on Earth, stories of Ravi's mission reached classrooms, research centers, and media houses. Children wrote essays titled "The Man Who Touched the Stars." Old teachers from Ravi's village spoke proudly of the boy who once fixed radios and dreamed of Mars. And Mina, now working quietly in her own office, watched the news with mixed feelings. She didn't cry anymore. She didn't feel ashamed. She simply watched and learned. She told her younger colleagues, "Value people, not by what they have, but by what they are becoming." One night on Europa, Ravi received a message from Earth. It was from the Global Council of Humanity. "We are naming our next fleet of exploration ships after you, the Sharma class. You have become a symbol of silent strength. We thank you." Ravi read the message and closed his eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He simply whispered, "I only did what I could." Some weeks later, Ravi was invited to speak to a group of young trainees at the Europa Science School. He stood before them in a simple jacket, holding only a chalk marker and a plain board. He began with a question: "Who decides your worth?" The room was silent. He answered himself, "Not your job, not your clothes, not even your family. You decide. You build your value with your actions, brick by brick, day by day." He drew a simple rocket on the board. "Some people will mock your dream. Some will laugh. Let them. Dreams don't need their permission. A young student raised his hand. "Sir, were you ever scared?" "Yes," Ravi said. "Often. But I was more scared of stopping than of failing." The students clapped. He didn't bow. He just stepped back and let his words remain. Later that evening, Ravi walked outside alone. The wind on Europa was silent, but the stars shone brightly. He knew he wasn't young anymore. He didn't know how many more years he had, but he did know one thing. He had started something that could never be undone. He had lit a fire in the dark, not by shouting, not by fighting, but by building quietly, patiently, powerfully. That was the human spark. Years passed. The Surya engine became the heart of every deep space ship. Human colonies grew on Europa, Ganymede, and Titan. People traveled between planets in hours, not months. Earth became a hub for interplanetary exchange. Children grew up, hearing stories of the stars like they once heard fairy tales. But one name was remembered above all others: Ravi Sharma. Ravi had become a quiet legend. He refused awards. He stayed away from politics. Instead, he focused on teaching, designing, and guiding the next generation. He no longer cared for fame. What mattered to him was that humanity kept moving forward. His beard had grown gray, his hands slower, but his mind was still sharp. On Europa, in a small circular lab surrounded by ice, he sat with a young group of engineers. "You won't always have support," he told them. "Sometimes no one will believe in you, not even your family." He looked around at their young, curious faces. "But if you believe in yourself and you keep building, step by step, you'll change more than just machines. You'll change the world." One night, he walked alone outside the base. He looked up at the stars, bright, silent, endless. He remembered the days of walking through red dust on Mars, the pain of being laughed at, the lonely nights in the lab. He remembered the cold dinner table, Mina's words, the silence in his heart. But all that pain had turned into strength. He had not let it break him. He had used it to rise. Back on Earth, the Unity Museum of Human Progress was opening a new section. At the center of the room stood a tall statue of a man holding a small cube, the prototype Surya engine. Below it were engraved the words, "Humiliated, ignored, unstoppable." In honor of Ravi Sharma, the man who bent space with silence, visitors from every planet came to see it. Children asked, "Who was he?" And their parents replied, "He was not a king, not a warrior, just a man who never gave up." Mina, now older, stood among the visitors. She wore a simple white scarf and carried a small flower in her hand. She walked slowly to the statue and stood there quietly. She whispered, "I knew him once." No one heard her. She placed the flower near the base of the statue, stepped back, and left with quiet eyes and a full heart. She didn't feel sad anymore. She felt grateful for having known him, even for a while. Meanwhile, on the far side of space, a new ship was ready for launch. It was the largest ever built, Ugni Star, designed to reach beyond the solar system. At its heart was the final version of the Surya core, and standing inside the control room was Ravi, holding a small notebook, his first notebook, filled with hand-drawn circuits and simple dreams. Tanyu stood beside him. "You sure you want to go on this one? You've already done enough." Ravi smiled. "There's no such thing as enough when you're building the future." Tanyu laughed. "Still the same old Ravi." "No," Ravi said softly. "Now, I'm the best version of him." As the countdown began, cameras from all over the system recorded the moment. People watched from colonies, from Earth, from Mars. And as the ship lifted off slowly, silently, powerfully, people rose to their feet, clapping not for the machine, but for the man who dared to build it. Inside the ship, Ravi looked out the window one last time at the planets behind. Then he turned his eyes forward to the stars. He wasn't trying to escape the past. He wasn't chasing anyone's approval. He was just going forward, as he always had, one step at A time, many years later, students would study his life in schools. Engineers would read his writings. His machines would carry people to new worlds, but his true legacy was not in metal or engines, that it was in the message he left behind. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to fight to be remembered. Build, try, endure, and one day, even the stars will whisper your name.